Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Butterfly Spirit 314. So guys, I learned 3 new things about my sewing machine from my operations owner's manual that I have for my brother sewing machine, and I wanted to share some of the things with you. And I wanted to share some of these things with you guys because I know that there are some of you guys who are, going to be getting a sewing machine, or you're considering buying a sewing machine. And I wanted to share some of these things with you so that you can be aware of some of these things because they could apply to your sewing machine. And some of these things I'm shocked that actually apply to my sewing machine, and maybe, just maybe, it might apply to yours too. So take some of these things in consideration because this could apply to your sewing machine as well. So something new I learned about my sewing machine is that it says, do not turn on the sewing machine while pressing down the foot controller. So for my machine, if I were to put my foot on the presser foot and then try to turn on the machine, then what's going to happen is my machine may suddenly just start working and like jump and start working, and that can cause me to get an injury. And the same could happen with you guys' sewing machine, guys. So I want you to know that if you're going to be sewing on your sewing machine, it's a good idea to make sure you keep your foot off of the presser foot. If you don't know what the presser foot even is on your sewing machine, for either the sewing machine you're going to be buying or a sewing machine that you're going to be getting from someone, it's a good idea to look into understanding what the presser foot actually looks like for your machine, okay? And then making sure that you keep your feet off of the presser foot, because you don't want to run the risk of accidentally getting stabbed by the needle of the sewing machine because you forgot that it was on. So we want to prevent injury, right? When it comes to sewing, we want to have fun. We want to make cool, cool stuff, right? Cool garments, which garments would be clothing, right? We want to make really cool, like, clothing and projects, right? And we want to make sure we keep down the injury. So it's a good idea, guys, if you are wanting to, work with your sewing machine, do not have your foot on the presser foot, okay? Don't do that. Make sure that you have your foot off of the presser foot first, and then what you want to do is turn your sewing machine on, and then when you're ready to start working with the sewing machine, then you can go ahead and, first you want to make sure you safely turn it on, and then apply your foot on the presser foot once you're ready to start sewing with the machine, okay? Something else I learned that I didn't expect is that it says here in my manual that when it comes to sewing, do not push or pull fabric when you are sewing, okay? So I know for some of you, you may not like the speed of your sewing machine, okay? Maybe you feel like your sewing machine, when you're sewing on it, is going extremely slow, right? You may feel like that. But if you want your sewing machine to go faster, there may be a speed adjustment on your sewing machine that allows you to be able to adjust the speed. If you don't know what the speed adjustment is on your sewing machine, then you can refer to your owner's manual, right? If you don't have an owner's manual for your machine because you have a refurbished sewing machine, maybe you got one off Facebook Marketplace or eBay, or maybe a secondhand store or a Goodwill or something like that, then you would want to make sure that you find an owner's manual, okay? Now, the secondhand store you got your machine from may not necessarily have that. So it's a good idea to go online and try and look for the manual yourself. Or if you're in doubt, then what you can do is you can always try to reach out to the sewing machine company and see if they can provide you with a manual for your machine. I'm sure they wouldn't have any problem with that. Now, depending on how old the machine is, if it's pretty old, you might still be able to find a manual for that machine. You just may have to search really hard and wide. If you can't find any kind of manual, then you might want to resort to YouTube videos where people actually have that machine. And, if like, for example, the person who's using that sewing machine that you have, if they are like have a boatload of knowledge on the machine, then you can comment on their video and say, hey, I really need help with my machine. I don't have a manual. Can you tell me how to do this? Or do you have a manual? Would you be able to give me a copy of, give me give me a copy of a few pages so I can like learn how to use my machine. You know what I mean? Or they might just be able to make a video about, what it is that you're trying to do so that you can get the help that you need as well as other people who have the sewing machine that you have. Okay? So, very important. Do not push or pull fabric. Okay? Like I said, you can adjust the speed of your sewing machine. Most sewing machines, I believe you should be able to adjust the speed. If you want to know for sure how you can adjust the speed, then you can go ahead and check your manual. If your machine is just really slow, right, then your machine is probably going to be meant for beginners, because beginners are going to be kind of scared, right? And I'm a beginner, right? I think it would be great to start off with a machine that starts pretty slow. But, I think I'd be really intimidated if like a machine was like super fast, because I feel like, with getting started with a sewing machine, I'd want it to be slow. But if you're somebody you've been like sewing for a long time, or maybe you're just jumping back into it or something, and your machine sews really slow, it could be that your machine only has a set speed that it sews at, and you may have to get you another machine. Like if you get like a really cheap machine or something like that, then you may have to like upgrade your machine or whatever. But you may want to check for that before you even like buy a sewing machine. Okay? So, third time, do not push or pull the fabric when you are sewing. Be patient with your machine. You can adjust the speed. If you don't know how, check your owner's manual. If you don't have the owner's manual, then you can do some research, and I'm sure you'll be able to find it. Okay? All right. Another thing that I learned about my sewing machine that could apply to yours as well is that when it comes to storing my sewing machine in particular, I'm told that I'm supposed to avoid storing it in direct sunlight and high humidity locations, and not to store my sewing machine around any kind of space heater, iron, or halogen lamp, or hot objects. And so this means that if there's any kind of appliance that has heat, not to store my sewing machine around it. So this is kind of giving me the idea that it's a good idea for me to store my sewing machine in a nice cool place where my sewing machine is not going to be, become a fire hazard. Okay? And the same could apply to you guys' sewing machines as well. All right? So guys, those are three new things I learned about my sewing machine. And I think that you guys should definitely check it out in your owner's manual for your sewing machine to make sure that, make sure that these don't apply to your sewing machine, because typically for most sewing machines, I'm not going to say across the board, but your sewing machine may be like mine, where it has specific like things that you have to know about your sewing machine to care for it and keep it running. All right. So thank you guys for watching this video. I hope it's been super helpful, and thank you for watching. And guys, see you in my next video. Bye-bye.